Okay, I'm going to build the antenna now. Um, First, I'll concentrate on this central piece right here, and then we'll add another object to create the coil there. And hold on. So, what I'm going to do is I'm going to select everything that's currently in the scene, right click, and hide it all. Just get it out of the way. And I'm going to build this thing. To begin with, I'm going to build it right over the origin. Once I've got it built, then I'm going to kind of move it back. Let me just unhide everything just for a moment. Let's see. So I'm looking at the grid marks. This antenna should go, almost 2 full grid marks over, and it's a little more than 1 grid mark on either side. Okay. So now I will select everything, right click, hide the selection, get it out of the way. All right. I'm going to build this thing with a cylinder to start off with, and a very small cylinder at that. Uh, Build it right here at the origin. I'll call it antenna base, just to give it a good name. Zoom in on this thing so I could see it. Looks like it's currently about 1 centimeter tall. I'll make it like 1.5 centimeters tall. Rather, that was my radius there. Maybe I'll make the radius about 1.25, and then 2 centimeters. Let's make it 4 centimeters tall. All right. With that bit set right there, I'm going to right click and convert it to an editable poly. So I can now get here and get on the top and get that top polygon. And with that top polygon selected, I'm just going to scale that down. It looks like it's tapered. It's wider at the bottom than it is at the top. So I'm just kind of creating that taper appearance. All right. Now I'll get off of the scale tool, and I'm just going to pull. So I'm going to get Inset, and the Inset 1 centimeter is too big, but I'll run that back a little bit and Inset it about right there, about 0.23 centimeters. And then I will extrude it, and 10 is way too much. Maybe I'll extrude it another 5 centimeters. Let me see here if I like what I see. 51 centimeters. Definitely do not like what I see. Try 5 centimeters. That's a lot better. Okay. Maybe I'll bump that up to like 7 centimeters. 7 centimeters. Okay, good. I'll go ahead and put a check mark on that. Now, the top of this thing, I'm just going to turn off polygons here and go get another cylinder here and just kind of draw it and switch to the Modify tab. This is going to be the antenna cross member, And let's see, I'll get the rotate tool. And at the moment, the pivot point for this piece it's at the bottom of it. It's at the base of it. And if I were to get the move tool here, and if I wanted to move this thing to 0, 0, 0, and let me grab that thing, put that at 0, 0, 0 also. So it's at 0, 0, 0. And this piece right here, its pivot point is currently down there at the bottom at its base. So I'm going to click on the hierarchy tab right here, select affect pivot only, and I'm going to tell that pivot to center to the object. That moves the pivot to the center of that tube that I made. And I'll turn off affect pivot only and get the rotate tool. Make sure that angle snaps is turned on. And I want to rotate this thing over 90 degrees. 90-degree rotation. Good. And then I'm going to move it down and into the top of this piece. Zoom on this so I can see it clearly. And on the Modify tab here for my antenna crossmember, I'm going to increase the radius. Wrong direction, Booth. Increase the radius till it basically wipes out that where it was cutting through from the top. Could bring that down a little bit, and there we go. Looks good on both sides. All right. Now the intended crossmember, I'm going to convert that also to an editable poly, so I can get my hands on its polygons. The one here on this end, and the one over there on that end. I've got 2 polygons selected. And the first thing I want to do is I want to do an inset. And again, an inset of a full centimeter is just too much. But that inset works a lot better, about 0.19. Now, these 2 polygons are still selected even after I did that inset. So check this out. If I use the extrude tool, open up the menu, and I'm going to bump that out to about that far. Let's just make it a nice round 18 centimeters. And I'll click the green check mark, and so far it's looking pretty good. Now, this whole thing, I'd like these parts to all be one thing, but next I want to build the curly part here, the curly part. Now, it's really irregular here. To create that kind of irregularity, I could build it the way I'm building it and then spend an hour, maybe an hour and a half on it, and I could get that irregularity. I'm just going to build it and make it look nice and clean, and none of that irregularity. So over here on the Create tab, next to the geometry, which is what we're used to, geometry is where we have box and sphere and cylinder. Right next to it is this thing called splines. And the spline that I'm going to select is called a helix. And I'll click on this helix and I will draw a helix. Now, chances are when you drew your helix, chances are your helix off the Create tool, your helix probably came with just one turn. If it's your first time ever using it, when you make a helix, it just makes one turn. And so I'll throw the helix in right here and switch to the Modify tab, and I'll call it Antenna. And man, I really need to learn how to spell Antenna, antenna. And I'm going to modify some of these variables here. So the number of turns, I'm going to increase the number of turns from 1 to 10 turns. And then I want to match the 2 radiuses. I'm just going to set them both at like 4. So set both of them to like 4. And then I want to do the same thing that I did before to that cylinder. At the moment, the pivot point is at the base. I want to have the pivot point for this object to be centered on it, on its very middle. So I'll move it there by affecting the pivot point and then come back to the Modify tab. And I'm going to grab the Rotate tool. And let me be very careful about this. I want to rotate it 90 degrees. There's a 90-degree rotation. And I want to get the Move tool, and I'll go ahead and position it at 0, 0, 0. And then I'm going to move it up, kind of, so where it matches that. Now, I'm going to get the Scale tool, and I'm just going to scale it in X, and I'm going to pull it out, scaling it in X. And then scaled in X here. Let me pull it in just a little bit. I'm going to switch to the top view here in perspective, but just perspective set to a top. And notice that, I get the Rotate tool here. You get the Rotate tool. And if I rotate this 90 degrees, then those pieces, turn off angle snaps. looks almost like it's connected there. I'm going to go ahead and select the whole thing, and I'm going to group it, and the group will be called Antenna. I'm going to grab the Move tool, just move this thing up in the air. Right-click and unhide all to put the TV back, and then grabbing my antenna that I made, stick it down into the top of the TV, zoom in on this, and then realize my antenna is, well, not half bad. It's not half bad. Let's see. I could go into the group here that is the antenna. I could open that up and just get my hands on the Helix, and I could change the thickness, bring the thickness down quite a bit. Bring the thickness down. Make sure that in the rendering menu here that by default those buttons are not clicked. So in fact, rendering might even be closed. Open up rendering and make sure that you check enable in viewport, enable in renderer, and adjust the thickness of what. So that's how I was making all that happen, and that looks a lot better. And then I can go back to the group, close the group, and now I'm pretty happy with how this thing looks. Do a quick render here. I can see I've still got some things I need to paint. I need to paint that crossmember, and I need to paint the actual antenna itself. But I think it's looking pretty good here. Let me open up the material editor, and let me open up that group so I can get these individual parts. I'll grab those and apply this brownish to it to the selection. Let me see how that's looking. Yeah, I'm happy with it. I'll go ahead and close the group. The group is closed, and I'd say my TV is done. If I wanted to put it into like the view like it had right there, and do one final render here to see how it's looking. Close that, cancel that, cancel. Back just a little bit so I can see a full render of the whole thing. Looks pretty good. Looks like a classic TV. All right, well that's it. Thank you.